The clock on Jake's desk showed 11:47 p.m. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at his computer screen one more time. The logo design for his client was almost finished, but something wasn't quite right. Maybe the blue was too dark, or perhaps the font needed to be bigger. He had been working on this project for 3 days straight. His apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of his laptop fan and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Jake lived on the 4th floor of an old building downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was his space. He had moved here 2 years ago after college and slowly made it feel like home. Earlier that day, his older sister Lisa had dropped off her 5-year-old daughter Mia for the weekend. Lisa was going to a work conference in another city and needed someone to watch her little girl. Jake didn't mind at all. He loved spending time with his niece even though he didn't have much experience with kids. Mia had been excited to stay at Uncle Jake's place. She brought her purple backpack filled with toys, her favorite blanket, and a small stuffed elephant named Peanut that went everywhere with her. After dinner, they had watched a cartoon movie together. Mia fell asleep on the couch around 9 o'clock, and Jake had carefully carried her to the guest bedroom. Now, 2 hours later, Jake thought she was sleeping peacefully. He planned to finish his work and then get some rest himself. Tomorrow, he had promised to take Mia to the park and maybe get ice cream. As he moved his mouse to adjust another color on the logo, Jake heard something. It was very soft at first. Tap, 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 like tiny feet walking on the wooden floor in the hallway. He stopped what he was doing and listened carefully. The sound came again. Definitely footsteps, but small ones. Jake smiled to himself. Mia was probably getting up to use the bathroom, or maybe she wanted a drink of water. Kids often woke up during the night, especially when sleeping in a new place. He turned back to his computer, thinking she would go back to bed on her own. But the footsteps didn't head toward the bathroom. Instead, they seemed to be coming closer to his room. Jake's bedroom door was slightly open, as he always kept it when working late. The light from his desk lamp created a warm glow that spilled into the dark hallway. Through the gap in the door, he could see a small shadow moving. Then very quietly, he heard his name. "Uncle Jake?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, soft and uncertain. Jake turned his chair around and saw Mia standing in his doorway. She looked so small in her oversized pink pajama shirt that reached almost to her knees. Her dark hair was messy from sleep, sticking up in different directions. In her arms, she clutched Peanut the elephant tightly. "Hey there, little one," Jake said gently, keeping his voice low and calm. "What are you doing up so late?" Mia didn't answer right away. She stood there for a moment, shifting her weight from one bare foot to the other. Her big brown eyes looked around his room, taking in the messy desk, the unmade bed, and the soft light from his lamp. "I couldn't sleep," she finally said, her voice still very quiet. Jake could see she was nervous about something. Her grip on Peanut was tight, and she kept looking over her shoulder toward the dark hallway behind her. "Bad dreams again?" he asked, remembering that Lisa had mentioned Mia sometimes had trouble sleeping lately. Mia nodded slowly. "There are scary things in my room," she whispered. "Under the bed. I can hear them moving around." Jake's heart went out to her. He remembered being her age and imagining monsters hiding in dark corners of his room. It felt so real back then, so frightening. "Would you like to tell me about it?" he asked, pushing his chair back from the desk. Instead of answering, Mia did something that surprised him completely. Without asking permission or waiting for an invitation, she walked straight into his room with a confidence that seemed unusual for such a worried little girl. She went directly to his bed, and with determination that made Jake smile, began climbing up onto it. The bed was higher than she was used to, so she had to pull herself up using the blankets. Her little legs dangled as she struggled to get on top. Jake started to get up to help her, but she managed it on her own, looking proud of herself once she made it. "Mia, what are you doing?" Jake asked, though he wasn't upset. He was more curious than anything else. She scooted back against his pillows, still holding Peanut close to her chest. "Your bed feels safe," she said simply. "The scary things can't get me here." Jake looked at his niece sitting on his bed, her small frame almost lost among his large pillows and thick comforter. There was something about the way she had just climbed up there so boldly and without fear that touched his heart. She trusted him completely. In her mind, Uncle Jake's room was a safe place where monsters couldn't reach her. He realized this was a big moment. Mia was reaching out for comfort and security, and she had chosen him. The responsibility felt both overwhelming and special at the same time. "Okay," Jake said softly, closing his laptop. The logo can wait. Tell me about these scary things you're worried about. Mia relaxed a little when she saw he wasn't going to send her back to the guest room. She adjusted Peanut in her lap and looked at Jake with those big, trusting eyes. They make scratching sounds, she began, her voice getting a bit stronger now that she felt safe. And sometimes I think I see shadows moving when there's no one there. Jake nodded seriously, treating her fears with the respect they deserved. He knew that to her these worries were very real and very frightening. As he listened to her talk, Jake realized that this unexpected visit was going to change his quiet evening completely. But looking at his brave little niece who had climbed onto his bed seeking safety, he knew there was nowhere else he'd rather be. His work could wait. Right now, the most important thing was making sure Mia felt protected and loved. The clock now showed midnight, and Jake's room had become a refuge for a scared little girl who needed her uncle's comfort more than she needed sleep. Jake moved his chair closer to the bed so he could sit next to Mia while she talked about her fears. The desk lamp cast a warm, gentle light across the room, making everything feel cozy and safe. Mia had settled herself comfortably against his pillows, but Jake noticed she kept fidgeting with her pajama shirt. The pink shirt was way too big for her small frame. It had probably belonged to her mom when Lisa was younger, and now it served as Mia's favorite sleep shirt. But tonight, it seemed to be bothering her more than usual. She kept tugging at the fabric and twisting uncomfortably. "This shirt keeps getting all twisted up," Mia said with frustration in her voice. She tried to adjust it, but the oversized garment had somehow gotten turned around while she was sleeping. The tag was now in the front, and the fabric was bunched up in an uncomfortable way. Jake could see she was getting more upset about the shirt than about the scary shadows she had mentioned earlier. Sometimes little problems could feel like big ones when you're already worried about other things. "Here, let me help you fix that," Jake offered, reaching over to help straighten the shirt. But Mia had already decided on her own solution. With the matter-of-fact attitude that only children possess, she grabbed the bottom of the oversized shirt and pulled it right over her head. She wasn't thinking about anything except getting rid of the uncomfortable, twisted fabric that was bothering her. Jake quickly looked away, feeling a bit awkward about the situation. But when he glanced back, he saw that Mia was wearing a proper set of princess pajamas underneath the shirt. The pajamas had long sleeves and pants covered in pictures of castles and crowns. She had just been wearing the big shirt over her regular sleepwear. "That's so much better," Mia said with relief, tossing the wrinkled shirt aside. She adjusted her princess pajama top and smiled at Jake with such pure happiness that it made his heart melt. That smile was something special. It wasn't just any regular smile. It was the kind of smile that only comes from someone who feels completely safe and comfortable. Mia looked right at Jake without blinking, her face glowing with trust and contentment. There was no worry in her expression now, no fear about monsters or shadows, just pure, innocent joy at having solved her problem and being in a place where she felt protected. Jake realized he was witnessing something beautiful and rare. In a world where adults often hide their feelings and put up walls, here was this little girl showing him exactly what complete trust looked like. She wasn't embarrassed or self-conscious. She had simply taken care of a problem and was now ready to feel better. "You look much more comfortable now," Jake said gently, reaching for his spare blanket from the closet. "Here, let's get you cozy." He unfolded the soft blue blanket and carefully placed it around Mia's shoulders. She snuggled into it gratefully, still holding Peanut the elephant close to her chest. The stuffed animal had been through many adventures with her and showed signs of being well loved, with slightly faded fur and one ear that was a bit more squished than the other. "Uncle Jake," Mia said, her voice much calmer now than when she had first appeared in his doorway. "Why do grown-ups always worry about everything?" The question caught Jake off guard. He had expected her to talk more about the scary things that had woken her up, but instead she was thinking about something deeper. "What do you mean, little one?" he asked, settling into his chair so they were at eye level. Mia shifted under the blanket, getting more comfortable. "Well, when I stay at Daddy's new apartment, he's always worried about making sure I eat enough vegetables and brush my teeth for the right amount of time. And when I'm with Mommy, she worries about whether I'm happy and if I miss Daddy too much. But right now with you, I don't feel worried about anything." Jake felt a lump forming in his throat. He hadn't realized that this little girl was carrying around so much awareness of the adult problems happening around her. Children were much more observant than people gave them credit for. Sometimes adults worry because they love you so much, Jake explained carefully. Your mommy and daddy both want to make sure you're healthy and happy. But you're right that sometimes we worry too much about things. Mia nodded thoughtfully as if this explanation made perfect sense to her. She hugged Peanut a little tighter and looked around Jake's room again. Her eyes took in his guitar leaning against the wall, the stack of books on his nightstand, and the art supplies scattered across his desk. Your room feels different than other grown-up rooms, she observed. It feels more fun, like you remember what it's like to be a kid. Jake smiled at her insight. Maybe that's because I'm still figuring out how to be a grown-up, he admitted. I'm only 28. Sometimes I still feel like I'm just pretending to know what I'm doing. This made Mia giggle, a sound that filled the room with warmth. I like that you told me the truth, she said. Most grown-ups pretend they know everything, even when they don't. As they continued talking, Jake noticed that Mia's breathing was becoming slower and more relaxed. The tension that had been in her small shoulders when she first arrived was melting away. Her eyelids were starting to look heavy, but she was fighting sleep because she was enjoying their conversation. Uncle Jake, she said softly, can I ask you something important? Of course, sweetie. You can ask me anything. Mia was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Do you think the scary feelings go away when you get older, or do grown-ups just get better at hiding them? The wisdom in her question amazed Jake. Here was this 5-year-old girl thinking about emotions and human nature in a way that many adults never did. He realized that this conversation was teaching him as much as it was helping her. I think, Jake said slowly, that everyone feels scared sometimes, no matter how old they are. But when you have people who care about you like family and friends, the scary feelings don't seem quite as big. And when you care about other people, like how I care about you, it makes you feel braver too. Mia smiled, that same pure, trusting smile again. That makes sense, she said sleepily. I feel really brave right now. Jake watched as she finally began to drift toward sleep, still sitting up against his pillows with the blue blanket wrapped around her. Her face was peaceful now, no longer worried about shadows or monsters. In the gentle light of his desk lamp, she looked like an angel who had wandered into his room to teach him something important about trust, love, and the simple power of being present for someone who needs you. Jake dimmed his desk lamp until the room was filled with soft golden light that felt more like candlelight than electric brightness. Mia had settled deeper into his pillows, but her eyes were still open, looking thoughtful rather than sleepy. He could tell there was more on her mind than just the twisted shirt or the imaginary monsters under her bed. Uncle Jake, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper in the peaceful room. Can I tell you something that I don't think I'm supposed to talk about? Jake felt his heart tighten a little. Sometimes children carried secrets that were too heavy for their small shoulders to bear alone. He moved his chair even closer to the bed and spoke gently. You can tell me anything. Mia, sometimes talking about things that worry us makes them feel less scary. She nodded and adjusted Peanut in her arms, as if the stuffed elephant might give her courage to speak. I think Mommy has been crying when she thinks I can't see her. Last week I got up to get some water, and I saw her sitting at the kitchen table with tissues. When she saw me, she smiled real quick and said she just had something in her eye. But I know what crying looks like. Jake felt a deep sadness wash over him. He knew his sister Lisa had been going through a difficult time with her divorce, but he hadn't realized that Mia was picking up on her mother's emotional struggles. Children were like little sponges, absorbing everything that happened around them, even when adults tried to protect them from grown-up problems. That must have made you feel worried about your mommy, Jake said carefully. It did, Mia admitted, and I keep thinking that maybe it's my fault somehow. Like maybe I did something wrong and that's why Daddy had to move to a different house. Maybe if I was a better kid, he would still live with us. The words hit Jake like a punch to the chest. This beautiful, innocent little girl was blaming herself for her parents' problems. She was carrying guilt that belonged to no one, especially not a 5-year-old child who deserved nothing but love and security. Oh, sweetie, Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. Listen to me very carefully, okay? None of what's happening with your mommy and daddy is your fault, not even a tiny bit. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that have nothing to do with their children. You're a wonderful, perfect kid, and both your parents love you more than anything in the world." Mia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just looked at Jake with an expression that seemed too mature for her young face. "Then why does everything feel so different now? Why do I have to pack a bag every few days to go between houses? Why does Mommy look sad even when she's smiling?" These were questions that Jake wished he could answer with simple explanations, but the truth was complicated and painful. How do you explain adult relationships and their failures to a child who still believes in fairy tales and happy endings? "Sometimes," Jake began slowly, "people change as they grow older. Your mommy and daddy loved each other very much when they got married and when you were born. But sometimes people grow in different directions, like two trees that start close together but reach toward different parts of the sky. It doesn't mean they did anything wrong, and it definitely doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means they decided they would be happier living separately while still both being your parents." Mia considered this explanation, turning it over in her mind like she might examine an interesting rock she found at the playground. But why does it have to make everyone so sad? In movies, people are usually happy when they make big changes. Real life is more complicated than movies, Jake admitted. Even when people make the right choice, it can still hurt for a while. Your mommy is sad because change is hard, even good change. She loves you so much that she worries about how all of this is affecting you. That's why she cries sometimes. It's not because you did anything wrong. It's because she cares so much about making sure you're okay. For the first time since climbing into his bed, Mia looked genuinely relieved. Some of the tension left her small shoulders, and she sank deeper into the comfortable pillows. "I've been having these dreams," she continued, her voice getting softer as she felt safer talking about her fears, not just about monsters under the bed. "Sometimes I dream that I'm in a big, empty house and I'm calling for Mommy and Daddy, but no one answers. I keep looking in all the rooms, but they're all empty. That's scarier than any monster." Jake felt his eyes sting with unshed tears. This little girl was dealing with abandonment fears and anxiety about her family's stability. The monsters she had mentioned earlier weren't just imaginary creatures. They were representations of all her worries about losing the people she loved most. "Those dreams sound really frightening," Jake acknowledged. "But I want you to know something important. No matter what happens with your mommy and daddy's living situation, they will never, ever leave you. You will always have both of them in your life, and you'll always have me too. I'm your uncle forever, and that's never going to change." Mia smiled a small, tentative smile. "Really? Even if everything else keeps changing?" "Especially then," Jake promised. "Some things in life are permanent, and family love is one of them. Your mommy and daddy might live in different houses now, but their love for you lives in here." He gently tapped the area over his heart, "and it's never going away." As they continued talking, Jake began to understand that Mia's sleep problems weren't really about imaginary monsters at all. They were about very real fears of abandonment and change. She was a little girl trying to make sense of an adult world that suddenly felt unpredictable and unstable. "Uncle Jake," she said, after a long, comfortable silence, "why do you think some kids have families that stay together and other kids have families that split apart?" "I think," Jake said thoughtfully, "that families come in all different shapes and sizes. Some families live all together in one house, some families split their time between different houses, and some families are made up of people who aren't even related by blood, but love each other anyway. What makes a family isn't really about where people live. It's about love and taking care of each other." Mia nodded slowly, processing this idea. "So even though Mommy and Daddy don't live together anymore, we're still a family?" "Absolutely. You're just a family that happens to have two homes instead of one. And you know what? That means you have twice as many places where you're loved and wanted." For the first time that night, Mia's smile reached all the way to her eyes. She shifted under the blue blanket, getting more comfortable, and Jake noticed that her breathing was becoming deeper and more relaxed. "I'm glad I came to talk to you tonight," she said sleepily. "I feel like the scared feelings in my chest aren't as big anymore." Jake reached over and gently smoothed her messy hair. "I'm glad you came to talk to me too, little one. Anytime you have big feelings or scary thoughts, you can always come find me. That's what uncles are for." As Mia finally began to drift toward sleep, Jake realized that this conversation had changed something fundamental between them. She had trusted him with her deepest fears and worries, and he had been able to offer her comfort and reassurance. He felt honored to be the person she turned to when the world felt too big and scary to handle alone. Sunlight streamed through Jake's bedroom window, painting golden stripes across the wooden floor. He woke up slowly, feeling more rested than he had in weeks. As his eyes adjusted to the morning light, he remembered why he felt so peaceful. Mia was still curled up beside him, sleeping soundly with Peanut the elephant tucked safely in her arms. Her dark hair was spread across the pillow like silk, and her breathing was deep and even. This was the first full night of sleep she had gotten in over a month, according to what Lisa had told him. Usually, Mia would wake up several times during the night, calling out from bad dreams or asking to check under her bed for monsters. But last night had been different. After their long conversation about family changes and feelings, Mia had drifted off to sleep holding Jake's hand. She hadn't stirred once during the entire night. Her small face looked completely peaceful, without any of the worry lines that had become common lately. Jake carefully slipped out of bed, trying not to wake her. He pulled the blue blanket up around her shoulders and tiptoed toward the kitchen to start making breakfast. As he walked down the hallway, he couldn't stop thinking about everything Mia had shared with him the night before. She had been carrying so much worry and guilt for such a young child. In the kitchen, Jake started making pancakes. He knew they were Mia's favorite, especially when he made them in fun shapes like stars and hearts. As he mixed the batter, he thought about calling Lisa to tell her about their conversation. His sister needed to know that Mia was aware of more than anyone realized. The smell of pancakes cooking must have woken Mia up, because Jake soon heard small footsteps padding down the hallway. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her princess pajamas and dragging Peanut behind her. Her hair was sticking up in every direction, and she had sleepy marks on her cheek from the pillow. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Jake said with a warm smile. "How did you sleep?" Mia climbed up onto one of the kitchen chairs and rubbed her eyes. "Really, really good," she said with a yawn. "I didn't have any scary dreams at all. I think talking to you made them go away." Jake flipped a heart-shaped pancake and placed it on a plate for her. "I'm so glad you slept well. Sometimes when we talk about things that worry us, they don't seem quite as scary anymore." As Mia started eating her breakfast, she swung her legs back and forth under the chair. "Uncle Jake," she said between bites of pancake, "can I ask you something important?" "Of course, little one. What's on your mind?" Mia looked up at him with those big brown eyes that always seemed to hold more wisdom than her 5 years should allow. "Even if Mommy and Daddy keep changing things about where they live and stuff, you'll always be my uncle, right? Like that's something that can never change even if everything else does." The question hit Jake right in the heart. He sat down across from her at the small kitchen table and took her sticky, syrup-covered hand in his. "Mia, being your uncle is one of the most important jobs I'll ever have in my whole life. Nothing could ever change that. Not where people live, not who they marry, not anything. I will always, always be your Uncle Jake, and you will always be my special niece. That's a promise that lasts forever." Mia's face lit up with relief and happiness. "Good," she said firmly. "Because I was thinking that maybe I could come stay with you more often. You know, when Mommy and Daddy are busy with grown-up stuff." Jake felt a surge of love and protectiveness wash over him. "I would love that more than anything," he said honestly. "We could have pancake breakfasts and movie nights, and I could teach you how to play guitar." "Really?" Mia's eyes went wide with excitement. "You would teach me guitar? That would be so cool." As they finished breakfast, Mia pulled out a piece of paper and her crayons from her backpack. "I want to draw a picture of last night," she announced, "so I can remember how safe I felt, and I can show Mommy that I had a good time." Jake watched as she carefully drew 2 stick figures on a bed. One was much bigger than the other, and both were smiling. She colored the bigger figure with brown hair like Jake's and gave the smaller one long, dark hair like her own. Between them, she drew a small gray elephant. "This is you, and this is me, and this is Peanut," she explained, pointing to each figure. "And see? We're both smiling because we're not scared of anything when we're together." The simple drawing brought tears to Jake's eyes. In her childlike way, Mia had captured something beautiful about their night together. She had found safety and comfort, and he had discovered how much he loved being someone she could depend on. After breakfast, Jake decided it was time to call Lisa. He wanted to tell her about Mia's fears and also about how well she had slept. While Mia played with her toys in the living room, Jake stepped out onto his small balcony to make the phone call. "Hey, Lisa," he said when his sister answered. "How's the conference going?" "It's good, thanks for asking." How's my little girl doing? I hope she wasn't too much trouble last night. Jake looked through the glass door at Mia, who was having an animated conversation with Peanut about their sleepover adventure. Actually, I need to talk to you about something important. Mia's been having a really hard time with all the changes happening at home. He went on to explain about the nightmares, the fears about family separation, and the guilt Mia had been carrying about her parents' divorce. Lisa listened quietly, and Jake could hear her sniffling on the other end of the line. I had no idea she was picking up on so much, Lisa said, her voice thick with emotion. I've been trying so hard to protect her from the adult problems, but I guess kids see more than we think they do. She's a smart kid. Lisa, she knows something big is happening, and her imagination is filling in the blanks with scary possibilities. But the good news is that talking about it really helped. She slept through the entire night for the first time in weeks. Really? Lisa sounded amazed. She hasn't done that at my place or at David's apartment. What did you do differently? Jake thought about how to explain it. I think I just listened to her fears without trying to fix everything or make it seem like no big deal. I let her know that her feelings were valid, and then I promised her that some things would never change, like how much we all love her. They talked for another 20 minutes about ways to help Mia feel more secure during this difficult transition. Lisa mentioned that she and David had been so focused on the legal and practical aspects of their separation that they hadn't spent enough time talking to Mia about her emotional needs. Jake, Lisa said as their conversation was winding down, would you be willing to have her stay with you more regularly? Like maybe every other weekend? I think having a stable, neutral place where she feels completely safe might really help her adjust. Jake didn't hesitate for even a second. I would love that, Lisa. Nothing would make me happier than being a bigger part of her life. When Jake came back inside, he found Mia holding up her drawing proudly. Look what I added, she said, pointing to new figures she had drawn around the bed. This is Mommy and this is Daddy, and they're both smiling too because they know I'm safe with you. Looking at the picture, Jake realized that something fundamental had changed in his life overnight. He had gone from being the fun uncle who saw Mia occasionally to being someone she considered a safe harbor in her storm. The responsibility felt huge but also incredibly meaningful. As they got ready to go to the park that afternoon, Mia slipped her small hand into his. Uncle Jake, she said, looking up at him with complete trust, I'm really glad you're my family. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Me too, little one. Me too. 3 months had passed since that life-changing night when Mia climbed into Jake's bed seeking safety from her fears. The autumn leaves were just beginning to turn golden outside Jake's apartment window, and everything about his life had transformed in the most wonderful way. Jake's spare bedroom was no longer just a guest room. It had become Mia's special space, decorated with her artwork covering the walls like a colorful gallery. There were drawings of rainbows, family portraits with stick figures holding hands, and pictures of her and Jake playing guitar together. A small bookshelf held her favorite stories, and a toy chest in the corner overflowed with puzzles, dolls, and building blocks. The room had a nightlight shaped like a butterfly that cast soft moving patterns on the ceiling. Jake had bought it after learning that complete darkness still sometimes worried Mia. But these days the nightlight was more for comfort than necessity. The scary dreams that used to wake her up several times a night had almost completely disappeared. This particular Saturday morning, Jake woke up to the sound of Mia singing softly in her room. She had developed a routine of talking to Peanut the elephant each morning, telling the stuffed animal about her plans for the day. Through the thin walls, Jake could hear her explaining that they were going to the park later to feed the ducks. And tonight, Uncle Jake said we can make pizza together, she was telling Peanut. The kind with extra cheese that gets all stretchy when you take a bite. Jake smiled as he got out of bed. These weekend mornings with Mia had become his favorite part of the week. She stayed with him every other weekend now, just as Lisa had suggested during their phone call months ago. The arrangement had worked out better than anyone had expected. In the kitchen, Jake found that Mia had already gotten herself a glass of water and was sitting at the table with a coloring book. She was carefully staying inside the lines of a picture showing a family of bears having a picnic. Good morning, sunshine, Jake said, ruffling her hair as he walked past to start making coffee. Morning, Uncle Jake, she replied without looking up from her coloring. I picked out yellow for the mama bear's dress because yellow is a happy color, and I think she should look happy in the picture." Jake watched her work, marveling at how much she had changed over the past few months. The worried, anxious little girl who used to have trouble sleeping had grown into a confident, cheerful child who woke up each day ready for new adventures. She still had moments of sadness about her parents living separately, but she had learned healthy ways to talk about those feelings instead of letting them turn into nighttime fears. "Uncle Jake," Mia said, setting down her crayon, "can I tell you something cool that happened at school yesterday?" "Of course." "What happened?" Mia's face lit up with excitement. "There's a new girl in my class named Amy, and she was sitting by herself at lunch looking really sad. I remembered what you told me about how good it feels when someone cares about you when you're worried, so I went and sat with her." Jake felt his heart swell with pride. "That was very kind of you, Mia. What happened then?" "Well, it turns out her family just moved here from far away and she doesn't know anybody yet. She was feeling scared about making new friends. So I told her that I know what it feels like when things change and you don't know what's going to happen next. And then I asked if she wanted to play with me at recess." "And did she want to play with you?" "Yes," Mia said, beaming. "We played on the swings and she taught me a song that kids sing where she used to live. She's really nice and I think we're going to be good friends. I told her she could come to my birthday party next month." Jake was amazed by Mia's emotional growth. The little girl who had once been consumed by her own fears and worries was now reaching out to help other children who were struggling. She had taken the comfort and security he had given her and was now sharing it with others. "I'm so proud of you for being such a good friend to Amy," Jake said, sitting down across from her at the table. "It sounds like you really understood how she was feeling." "I think when people help you feel better, it makes you want to help other people feel better too," Mia said thoughtfully. "Like how you helped me not be scared anymore, so now I can help Amy not be scared." After breakfast, they got ready to go to Riverside Park, their usual Saturday destination. Mia had become friends with several other children who regularly played there, and their parents had gotten to know Jake as the devoted uncle who spent his weekends making sure his niece had fun. As they walked through the park, Jake noticed how confidently Mia approached other children. She would walk right up to kids she didn't know and introduce herself, asking if they wanted to play together. The shy, anxious child who used to cling to adults in new situations had been replaced by a little girl who saw potential friends everywhere she looked. "Uncle Jake, look," Mia called from the top of the climbing structure. "I can go all the way to the top now without being scared." Jake waved at her from the bench where he was sitting. "That's amazing, Mia. You're so brave." Watching her play, Jake reflected on how much his own life had changed too. Before Mia started staying with him regularly, his weekends had been mostly about working on freelance projects or hanging out with friends at bars. Now his schedule revolved around park visits, library story times, and trips to the Children's Museum. His friends had initially been surprised by the change. Some of them didn't understand why Jake wanted to spend so much time with a 5-year-old. But Jake had discovered that taking care of Mia had given his life a purpose and meaning that his previous lifestyle had been missing. He looked forward to their time together more than anything else in his week. His work had improved too. Having Mia in his life had taught him to be more organized and efficient with his time. He finished projects faster and with more creativity than before. Several clients had commented on the positive changes in his attitude and work quality. Lisa had noticed the changes in both Jake and Mia. During their weekly phone calls, she often mentioned how much calmer and happier Mia seemed overall. The little girl still had 2 homes and had to pack a bag every few days to move between her parents' houses, but she no longer saw this as something scary or unstable. Instead, she had begun to view it as having multiple places where she was loved and wanted. "Jake," Lisa had said during their most recent conversation, "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for Mia, and honestly, what you've done for our whole family. Knowing that she has you as her safe place has made it so much easier for David and me to work through our own issues." As the afternoon wore on at the park, Jake watched Mia help a younger child who had fallen off the swings. She gently dusted off the little boy's knees and told him that falling down was okay, that everyone falls sometimes, and that the important thing was getting back up and trying again. The little boy's mother came over to thank Mia for being so helpful and kind. "You're such a sweet girl," the woman said. "Your daddy must be very proud of you." "Oh, he's not my daddy," Mia corrected cheerfully. He's my Uncle Jake, but he takes really good care of me just like a daddy would. Jake felt tears prick his eyes. In that simple statement, Mia had captured exactly what their relationship had become. He wasn't her father, but he had become someone just as important in her life. He was her safe harbor, her weekend adventure buddy, her guitar teacher, and her biggest cheerleader all rolled into one. As they walked home from the park that evening, Mia slipped her hand into Jake's just as she had done hundreds of times over the past few months. "Uncle Jake," she said, looking up at him with those wise brown eyes. "Remember that night when I was really scared and I came to your room?" "Of course I remember. That was a very important night. I was thinking about it today and I realized something. I thought I was just looking for a safe place to sleep, but I think I actually found something even better." "What's that, little one?" Mia smiled, the same pure, trusting smile that had melted his heart that first night. "I found out that no matter what changes happen in the world, there will always be people who love me enough to keep me safe. And now I can be one of those people for other kids too, like Amy at school." As they reached their building and climbed the stairs to Jake's apartment, Jake realized that Mia had learned one of life's most important lessons. She had discovered that love and security weren't about having a perfect, unchanging situation. They were about having people in your life who would show up when you needed them most. That night, as Jake tucked Mia into her own bed in her own room, she looked around at all her artwork on the walls and her toys arranged just the way she liked them. "This feels like home," she said contentedly, hugging Peanut close. "It is home," Jake replied, kissing her forehead. "This will always be your home for as long as you want it to be." And as Mia drifted off to sleep, Jake knew that the scared little girl who had climbed into his bed that night 3 months ago had grown into someone extraordinary. She had learned to turn her own healing into a gift she could share with others, and in doing so, she had taught him the true meaning of unconditional love.